evening, friends. It's Friday, which means it's time once again for another exciting and informative episode of Hobbservations on the roads to liberty, part of the Think Liberty Network. That's think-liberty.com, think-liberty.com for all of your liberty podcasting needs. Go there, subscribe to us, subscribe to one of our other podcasts on there. We're not the only ones, but I do like to think that we are the best. And joining us tonight is a mysterious masked individual from the East Coast. He is the admin from North Carolina. That's with the /K/ for the Carolina part. How are you doing, and what should I call you?
I'm doing good. You can just call me North or North Carolina. It's up to you.
Right. All righty, sounds good. So tonight we're going to be talking about, there have been some protests out there in Raleigh a couple of weeks ago, I saw, and there's also been, as is to be expected, whenever those damnable peasants out there decide they want to go against the narrative that the media and the government are pushing. There have been a few hit pieces about the protests in general and the Boogaloo Boys in particular. So we're going to be talking about those and the state of liberty in North Carolina and anything else we want to talk about tonight. So why don't you kick us off and give us a little primer on what it is that you want to discuss.
Cool deal. Well, I just want to talk tonight about some observations that I make every day. The daily goings on of this liberty movement, the Boogaloo Boys, all these articles, protests you see, and really just the creeping tyranny in general. I'm in contact with a lot of the guys who pretty much have a lot of influence, in the community, and we all talk and try and work these things out, and yeah, it's good for our followers to actually hear us for once instead of trying to sort through the feed, trying to see what we have to say or what we're banning, not banning, trying to turn off commenting to who or what we're promoting, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what this show's kind of turned into lately. I started out with wanting to do kind of a prepper / end of civilization type of deal, and lately it's really morphed into just giving a voice to people like you and the guys from TBL and others about how they can get their voice out there that isn't just comments on Facebook and through emails and Messenger, and that's fine. Hopefully, once all this dies down, I'll be able to get back to my regularly scheduled shit posting.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is really good to be able to, to have conversations like this. People can tune into. We can see the live stream comments if anybody wants to join in. Got my little watch party right here, so we can talk to fans and answer any questions. And it's good that we can do things like this because we have been seeing articles written by outlets like Huffington Post and even more inflammatory stuff coming out of places like Vice News. And if that's if that's all
top
that you
tier journalism right there.
Yes, that's peak journalisting, if you ask me. But yeah, if that's where you're getting your news from, you're going to get the assumption that the Boog Boys and anybody out there at these protests are just they're basically like white supremacists that are just pissed off that they can't get a haircut and they want to intimidate lawmakers. And that's really not at all. I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there that are like that. They're just pissed off because they're mildly inconvenienced. You're going to have shitheels in any movement that you have, but that is not what's going on at these protests. So some of the people that you said that you're in contact with, tell us about what it is that they're seeing, what it is they're saying, and why it is that they're doing what they're doing.
Well, some of the guys from these different influencing groups and pages, they're actually there on the ground. Now, I'll admit, I personally physically have not been able to go to any protests in North Carolina because one, I'm a nursing student. Number two, I've got a pregnant wife at home. Number three, I work full time still because I'm still essential. But I do follow things avidly. I get on the ground reports from guys who are in this state and other guys who travel from out of state, and then I'm constantly watching, um, so that I can keep up on the page and let all of my followers be informed about what's going on and what's being said before the media can spin it.
Hmm.
As a little bit of what you said, there's how the media spins things, and really, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to try um, and parley with corporate media, because they are what they are, and they write what their editors want them to write. They just want a little bit fresher shock pictures and all that, which goes back to the journalistic quality of things of Vice, Huff Post, Gizmodo, Verge, um, all those fringe outlets, BuzzFeed, now this. But here in 2020, I think a lot of people are realizing that that's not the tip top peak of journalism.
Mm-mm.
The real battle is with corporate outlets like MSNBC. Um, I won't say CNN because they dug their own grave several years ago. But at big outlets like that, Bloomberg, very internationally recognized outlets, it's very hard to be able to have a voice and help inform the public when the mass media is pretty much against every aspect of this movement. But as for the Huff Post articles and the Vice and all that, those end up memes.
Hmm.
They're that low of quality of journalism. You read it and they're full of typos, and you can't really take any of that seriously.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people do, and that's where we kind of run into the problem. If you get into the comment section on any of these websites and their articles, you're going to see people that are parroting the talking points. It's like, oh, looks like a bunch of pissed off white guys with their tiny dicks and big guns again. It's like I've never had a girlfriend or anybody be as obsessed with my dick as left-wing journalists and
It
their
would be nice,
ideal.
wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. As much as these people are with the size of my dick, it's crazy. And
Yeah, I've got a
and
favorite meme in my like 16,000 photo meme collection on this iPhone. It's like Captain Kirk, not Captain Kirk, but well, I'm on
Picard.
Star Trek, but yeah, Captain Picard sitting back, just like, tell me more about this fascination you have with my penis.
Yeah. Hmm.
They
Yeah.
love that, and
Yeah.
I see those comments. I do sadly give them that one click just to browse through and see what they've said. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing across all these outlets, just with a couple of different words,
Hmm.
and that just it really fades away quickly. The things that stick though are the incidents we have, like failed rallies. Like I'm not going to call what happened in Odessa a rally, but
Hmm.
that pretty much put everybody who wears a Hawaiian shirt or open carries and talks a lot of shit online to shame.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I try not to perpetuate is talking shit that I can't back up. Now,
Right.
I love sharing the memes. I love everything that this community creates. But one of the things I won't do is say that I'm going to go defend this particular thing if I can't do it,
Right.
whether situationally or I know that I'm outnumbered and it's extraordinarily unwise to do so.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the big takeaway that I've seen after the Odessa thing. You had 7 or 8 guys, and from the best of my knowledge, a lot of them were some of the same guys that were guarding that hair salon that Shelley Luther was trying to keep open. After what happened to her happened, they moved on. They were going to go to this bar opening, and they showed up there, and everybody is making a big deal of the small picture zoomed in of a couple of, you know, what is it? What am I trying to say? The type 2 diabetes waiting to happen.
Yeah, that
Guy.
I'm loving those memes, by the way.
Yeah, a couple of
I've saved every single one I come across.
couple of fat ass sheriffs walking up and pointing guns at 7 or 8 guys and getting them to hands up and get on the ground. And what they don't talk about, a lot of people are talking shit like, oh, well, just 2 sheriffs, so I would have started shooting or whatever. But what they're not looking at big picture, and from what I've heard, is that it wasn't just 2 sheriffs and an MRAP. They rolled up outnumbering these guys 30-1, or like 30 cops to these
Yeah,
8
that's what I've
guys.
heard. Third,
And,
somewhere in between in the ballpark of 30 and 40 officers.
right. And you do need to choose your battles wisely. If you're 7 or 8 guys and you're standing in the open and 30 cops roll up and they've got the cover advantage, the surprise advantage, the firepower advantage, and they've got an MRAP. Now, I've ridden in plenty of MRAPs before, and those things ain't no joke. You're not going to win that fight, and there's no sense in martyring yourself. And these
Exactly.
guys knew that, and you can take a look at their mugshots. They're all smiling ear to ear like y'all are going to be paying through the nose once this lawsuit comes through.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And believe they were, from what I've read, and what one of the live reporters on the scene, I think is some um, there's a lady there in a Hawaiian print dress who worked for a news agency, and she was there live on her phone and saying these guys were on property they had permission to be on behind the bar property, not
Hmm.
physically on the bar property, and they still rolled up 30 deep in an MRAP and with the whole fleet of vehicles to take these guys in with extreme force
Hmm.
and shut down the salon and arrest. Was it the salon? There's a bar. Shut
Yeah,
down the bar and arrest the bar owner. And what they charge the guys with? Civil disobedience.
and that's
You
it.
think if they were on the property of the bar that they would have charged them appropriately with um, that ridiculous charge anyway? But all they got them with was civil disobedience. So all
Hmm.
that was is just making a statement.
Right. And that's all that a lot of this is just the government is not being taken seriously. They are people are turning into scofflaws, and the government is trying to clamp down. They're like, no, I have the authority, I've got the monopoly on the use of force. And people are just thumbing their nose at authority and saying, fucking try me. And it's the government is going to clamp down harder. People are going to push back harder, and eventually, either these lockdowns, somebody at a governor's mansion or a mayor, or excuse me, maybe even at the DOJ or the president himself is going to come out and say, "Hey, let's squash this right now before we have a situation like Odessa." But the boys decide that they've had enough, and they just decide that they're going to go out guns blazing and make a statement. Something's got to give, and I really hope that it doesn't come to any type of violence.
Well,
But
since you said that, there's one thing I've noticed, and it was pointed out. I believe it was that video of the law enforcement officer sitting in his vehicle. He made a pretty popular YouTube video where he was pretty much reality checking things and saying, "Hey, these things that they want me to enforce are unconstitutional."
mhm,
And I think my fellow officers need to realize that what's going on here is definitely not what we signed up for. And he's trying to just reach out to his fellow officers, but that spread like wildfire. And I picked it up probably yesterday or 2 days ago. I think it was a little late, but you know, part of me thinks that's a little too late. The
mhm,
guys on the force just now waking up to the realization that the more this government pushes, the state governments, local governments, the federal government pushes, the more that these people who are asleep are going to wake up and start to realize, oh, hey, it's actually happening to me now. And they're going to start pushing back.
right,
And so what's going on is not something that we don't have to advertise this movement.
mhm,
Now, there's a couple of reporters who want to call it the Boogaloo movement or the Big Igloo. the boog or whatever, and a lot of them take that as something serious. And we all know that's started out as a meme, and
Mhm.
it just was adopted by the masses who are flocking to this particular branch of the community. But what's really going on in this nation is not just limited to us who wear Hawaiian shirts, who run K pages or implying pages, or anything like that. There are so many people waking up to the idea and the realization that their liberties are being trampled on. So you've got so many groups in this huge frame of view that are starting to sound off, that are starting to show up at rallies, that are starting to realize, well, maybe the right isn't as great as we thought they were, and the left aren't the only enemies that we have. It's this entire stinking thing that's starting to really affect my well-being and my life and my income and my ability to move, my ability to travel, my ability to say this at this place, my ability to carry this firearm. And this whole thing should not be labeled a boogaloo movement or an igloo movement or a great luau. This is just the meme side of things. This whole thing is a great big liberty movement,
Mhm.
and we're not alone. Like my puny page of 7,800 followers this week, that's next to nothing. There are so many people that are finding us regardless of Facebook algorithms, and they're just like, oh hey, these guys are woke up, they see what's going on, they're a little edgy, but it is what it is. I'm going to follow these guys. And then the idea of liberty, it's like the movie V for Vendetta, where he said you can't kill an idea. What's happening is liberty is spreading organically, and we
Mhm.
were already on it from the start. So I think that's why the Boogaloo, the Big Igloo, just got so much media attention at first. Because who are these guys in Hawaiian shirts with guns and you know all this? We all know how they are, late to the game as always, and reporting the wrong things.
Yeah, that's you touched on how we're not how we don't need to advertise this, and one of the things that I've noticed in the Huffington Post article, the Vice articles, back a couple of months ago when we had that Network Contagion Research Institute article that was just
I did not get any recognition except for one little like North Carolina comment right there at the bottom of a screenshot, and
yeah.
I'm like, you bastards.
Yeah, I know. My personal my name was right there in one of the screenshots, and I was just like, beautiful. But yeah, when we had that, it's one of the things that they seem to be fixated on is recruiting. They call it recruiting. They say that we're out
Mhm.
there trying to radicalize members of law enforcement, military, and veterans. And it's something that I've talked to with a couple of other people, mainly the guys from TBL. And I said, this isn't recruiting. Guys like me that are veterans and some law enforcement agents and active duty military, any such as it is, the people that are in those communities that also are following and liking and getting involved with the Boogaloo / Liberty stuff. We weren't recruited. Some shady guy in a trench coat didn't come up to me one day and it's like, "Hey kid, you want to try some Hawaiian shirts and plate carriers?" That shit didn't happen. I sought this stuff out because the type of person generally that is the guy that looks at what America is, the idea of America, the individual liberty, personal responsibility, et cetera, and says, I like that. I want that to keep on going, and I am willing to sign on the dotted line and put my life on the line in order to defend that for X number of years. That type of person is going to look at things like the Liberty Movement and the Boogaloo Movement and say, I like what these guys are putting down. I'm going to sign up to that too. So it's not really so much of a recruiting. It's just going to throw the idea out there, and if it sticks, it sticks. And this stuff sticks hard.
It really does because it affects everybody. And I love some of these articles. And I will say that some of these guys who get out there and do some wild things on live, and I'm going to give it to my commenters. They call them LARPers.
Hmm.
They put themselves in situations that, in the end, aren't wise. They're not well thought out. They think they're helping the movement. All they are is giving more ammo to the firing squad trying to ruin us there in the media. But yeah, we really try to rein that in. And we've been working on going back to the whole media thing. We've been working on weeding out the things that the media likes to find. They do find like the eco-fascists and the ethno-statists and everything who infiltrate our pages and our groups. But we're starting to make butt hurt posts to make them butt mad, and they've been making themselves known. It's just like the person who's a vegan who can't keep quiet about it, or the person who what is it? They do yoga, always got to talk about it, or
CrossFit.
CrossFit. That's it. You'll always know who does CrossFit. You always know who's a vegan because they can't resist an opportunity to let you know.
Right, because they substitute their lifestyle for their personality. Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed, a lot of people who are detracting from the open up protests and the Boogaloo movement is a lot of people seem to be trying to conflate these protests with Colin Kaepernick and his little national anthem stunts that he was doing at football games. And at first, I was just rolling my eyes. It's like, oh boy, here come the race baiters again, trying to stir up more tension. But this narrative that just keeps coming back is white guys, mostly white guys with guns, show up at a government building and they get treated nice. Colin Kaepernick takes a knee during the national anthem for police brutality and gets shit on and blacklisted in the NFL. There's that white privilege again, and it just keeps coming back. Now, I have my own personal opinions on that particular little juxtaposition that people seem to be wanting to make, but I'm interested right now, and I'll get to what I think about it. But I'm interested what you think about it, and if that you see that on your page and how you respond to it.
I do see it on my page. I shared the Colin Kaepernick, the irony meme, is what I'll call it, where a lot of the people are okay with, armed guys. Now the guys who are showing up at state capitals, to open carry and everything, they're out there not just to make tyrants afraid again, but also exercising their constitutional right. But
Mm-hmm.
what is Colin Kaepernick doing? He is exercising constitutional right. That's a form of speech on a platform that he has. I will never be a football player. I will never have that platform, and it's not upon me to get jealous of the platform that he has to say whatever he wants to say or believe whatever he wants to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. The media is going to sit here and turn anything that we do into white supremacy or whatever, and they're always going to conflate it with something. And the only thing that they have to attack everybody with is, oh, it's white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see it in every article. It's the go-to thing. It's been the go-to thing for years. It's white privilege. It's white supremacy. Now, I will admit this. Back years ago, when all these, when Black Lives Matter got founded, and people like Eric Garner was choked to death by police. I was asleep back then. I didn't really see the big picture. It's only when I got into college and I took English 111 and I had to write objectively. And back then I wasn't really paying attention to it a whole lot. I wasn't taking sides. I didn't really care. But I was under the impression that police, were just policing.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those guys who was just asleep to everything. But once I started writing, objectively and being honest, I chose the subject of police interactions and the way media covers things and social media, all this stuff. And I was just like, somehow I managed to come to this point that what happened to Eric Garner was wrong. And why wasn't it treated as wrong by half the country versus just the media side of things?
Mm-hmm.
But then that's also the same Well, no, I was already seeing the whole militarization of police thing a little bit before all that. But now, when I go in retrospect about everything, I see why Ferguson burned. I see why people are mad. I see these things, and I'm just like, this dude's out here just selling whatever on the street, and they go up, and it just reinforces that police, or most, I will say, like most police these days, because um, you can see how bad the brotherhood or fraternity
Hmm.
fraternizing is amongst police departments. If you want to step up, you're going to get thrown under the bus
Yep.
by your brothers in blue. But you know, you started seeing these things, and they're just as much victims. And some of the guys here in this liberty movement are just now waking up to that. That's sad, and it's unfortunate that people didn't wake up, sooner. But the institutions of government and the police agencies out there who are enforcing these things will sentence death on you for resisting.
Hmm.
And it's not right. Just like in Odessa, Texas, where they roll up in MRAPs, with their own ARs pointed at you for backing up a guy who wanted to open up his bar because he needs the money. That's his way of life. And so
Right.
they roll up on you while you're on private property, open carrying, to institute a show of force. And I guarantee you, if one of those guys had actually stood his ground, they would have gunned every single one of them down.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
And so it leads into the militarization of police. Like Duncan Lemp, who was swatted, who was no knock rated at 4:30 in the morning and killed. What kind of ethical practice is that? How can you honestly wear a badge and go out there and implement that on an American citizen? Let alone go out and be a veteran and fight a pointless war in the desert. My
Hmm.
opinion, by the way. If I make any veterans who follow my page mad, I'm sorry about that, but I do believe our ventures in the desert are a little uh, less about liberty than they are about financial interest.
Right. I think that almost 20 years on, most of us who were there, who been there, done that, will agree with you. It takes a very special kind of idiot to think that what's going on in Afghanistan now, despite the justifications that may have been at the beginning, well, what's going on now, and especially what happened in Iraq, was anything more than just war profiteering. I know a couple of guys who still think it was a good idea just because they were involved in it, and they think that any criticism of the war itself is a critique on their personal service. It's like,
Yeah.
no, no, dude, you can have been involved in it and think that it was a bad idea. You didn't have all the information when you went in, and now, hindsight being 2020, you realize, God, that was a fucking waste of time and money and lives.
Exactly. Like our guys who sign up for service, and we honor our vets, but and then you got the guys who get mad if you don't spank the cervix a little bit. But I mean, when you sit there and you look at, and I hate to undermine people's tours of duty, but when they go over there and they brag about killing guys who are pretty much defending, their own turf. Like if let's put this in my perspective. If I'm out here on my farm, out there in my field, and I start hearing, gunfire and see smoke, and then some MRAPs come up, and a couple of tanks, and they hold me at gunpoint, and if I try and like run or resist or like defend myself against these foreign invaders and shoot, of course they're going to kill me, and they're going to clear my house and kill whoever's in there, and carry on with their day, and get praised on media. Now, I'm not dissing our men and women in uniform, but I have to say, like, these pointless wars are a disgrace to really our servicemen, our servicewomen, and just the founding principles of of this country, of this republic.
Hmm.
Why are we over there? Whose interest are we over there in? It just, when you really sit down and look at it, it just doesn't make sense.
Right, right. So yeah, so let's get back to the the protests and all that other fun stuff that's going on. Are there any new protests that are planned in Raleigh? Has the governor there decided that they're going to ease up on some of the restrictions? What's the on ground intel?
Today was supposed to be phase one. Now, I'm not in town today. I've been minding my own business, putting up a chicken coop and getting some stuff done here on the farm. But today was supposed to be implementing phase one of reopening things. And I don't think it's quite hair salons and bars and stuff yet. It's more along the lines of expanded retail and just starting to relax restrictions. But I think he's probably going ahead with it because half the state's about ready to drag him out of the governor's mansion and utilize the old guillotine.
Tar and feathers never went out of style.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure yet on which protests. Like, I know Reopen NC was doing it every Tuesday. I'm not sure if they're still going to be continuing doing that, given that we're going into the phase one of reopening. But that's yet to be seen and heard. And of course, I'll post it up on my page as things unfold.
Okay, cool. So what's the supply and the economics and everything out there looking like? I say that because here where I'm at in Nebraska, we are absolutely surrounded by agriculture everywhere. And yet, because of the way that the supply chains work, my shelves at my local Walmart are looking mighty bare on some essentials like meat especially. We had a bit of a run on bread and a few other things at the beginning of this when the toilet paper thing was taking all of the news attention. Other shelf stable stuff, canned goods, bread was a big one, eggs. We never really had too much of a shortage on milk, but now those are back. But meat is looking like it's going away. And because of the way that our supply chains work, like my local Walmart doesn't go out and visit these farms that are 5 miles down the road in order to stock their shelves. Things go from farms to processing plant to packaging to distribution and then back to the stores. That's the way that it works. So
Yep.
Here we've got a really weird, like water everywhere, not a drop to drink. I'm surrounded by ag and there's no meat on the shelf. How are things looking out where you're at as far as that goes?
They're about the same. I am in eastern North Carolina. I'm in the middle of farm country. All of my neighbors are farmers. Half my family are entrepreneurs and farmers. And in this town, we have a meat processing plant, and they had they hushed it up real quick, but they had 6 positive cases of COVID there, and they I believe they suspended most operations until that passes. I guess their employees get tested or whatever, because what's happening is they're going to work and they're in tight quarters there in the plants, and they're transferring juices and all this stuff, and they're trying to stay on top of it, but it's really impossible in a meat processing plant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good friends with people who work at them. I'm good friends with these farmers around here, and since all these plants have had to shut down, yeah, the Walmart down the road here, which is probably the biggest thing in this town, um, it is lacking everything except a few, meatless options.
Mm-hmm.
And
Nobody wants that crap anyways.
and some chicken. Sanderson, Case, Smithfield, even Prestige is starting to cut back their production. I think Case Farms in Wayne County was selling cases of chicken, 4 10-pound bags per case for $2.50 a case. You would order it and go wait at the fairgrounds and you pick it up. And this is not just like shit chicken. This is the chicken that they supply to Pizza Hut, Pizza Inn, Arby's, Chick-fil-A, all this stuff that you're picking up premium quality chicken parts, processed and for $2.50 a case.
Wow.
$2.50 a case because they have to dump their supply.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't keep the processing plants open half the time because people are getting sick. Now, I work at a hospital. We take the top precautions ever. We have our own like COVID floor. We have designated floors. We're zero visitor policy. In the emergency department, we're of one visitor policy. Even if you're giving birth to a child, you can only have one visitor. So if daddy shows up, great. If it's your mom that goes with you and daddy shows up later, too bad. Dad can't go in. It can only be that same visitor because we're trying to prevent the spread of infection. Yeah, that's going to be its own baby. I can talk some rants about that. As far as agriculture goes, my wife is involved in the industry, and she said that as for hog production, they are putting the hogs on diets to slow down their growth, so that they can process them after a longer time span. They're culling new piglets. It is what it is. Like, you can't just cut them loose, and you can't just always sell whole hogs to people because not everybody can just roll up and buy 1,000 hogs off a farm.
Yeah.
And I hate the waste. I really do. I appreciate what potato farmers were doing. Like, some of these farmers were taking up their crops and selling direct to customers, and you could pretty much do that with produce. Now, there are some hog farms out here who are selling a whole hog you can pick up, and you pretty much do all the work yourself, or you take it to a butcher. It wouldn't go through processing, and they would have to cull it eventually.
Right. We had a local hog farm here that I saw. They put it out on Facebook. They said, "Hey, we're selling whole market ready hogs for $100.
Yeah,
Whole hog."
and you can fill a freezer. Like, I don't even think I have to go hunting this year, and like a couple of bucks will last me over a year. Just I'll fill the freezer with hams, those wonderful back straps, and shoulders, neck for the crock pot, all this stuff, and a couple of bucks will go a long way if you know how to cook.
Yep.
And my wife is the better cook in this family for sure. She knows how to stretch things out, which I have to say I'm glad I married my wife. She's probably in bed watching this broadcast, but I married her because she is the type of woman who has old world skills that it's hard to find in women these days. And I know I don't want to broadcast it, but we have a lot of supplies to last a long time. And before all this COVID mess came up, we can eat for a long time, thanks to her planning.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have. You mentioned the old world skills; those are going to be coming back into vogue, I think, and I hope that they stick around.
There are so many people buying chickens right now, and we bought 9 new Langshan chickens. It's a heritage breed from the 1800s. They're pretty hardy, and the estimated egg production per year per hen is about 200 eggs. Not quite as much as ducks, but still, it's a lot of eggs. But I'm seeing more and more people get into self-sustainability, which leads me to one of the groups I manage is a group on self-sustainability. And I really would love for the FBI and the NSA to track that group so they can actually learn a couple things.
Yeah.
And maybe not have to sit there and sweat away at a desk and track us all. They can go be self-sustainable on their own.
Right. Yeah. Unemployment in the federal government is not a problem. That's something that we kind of want people to go through. So you said no, I just want to ask this quick question here because I want to be a smart ass. Said you're a nursing student and you work at a hospital. So what is your favorite TikTok video that you've made so far?
I have made 0 TikToks. I refuse to make TikToks. And I only just downloaded the app a couple of weeks ago because some of my fellow students wanted to do it and wanted me to see it. And I was like, all right, I'll download it, but I'm not going to make your video. I have to say I was involved in one video. Maybe I lied. But I held the phone so they could go do their thing.
Yeah, I know.
But
It's just I'm just being a smartass. We're seeing these nurses dancing around on TikTok videos. It's like, God, y'all are so busy. You have the opportunity to not only make a dance video but to actually choreograph it too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is that half the hospital I work at's been furloughed.
Mm-hmm.
We've shut down day surgery because those are pretty much elective surgeries. The only thing we keep open is the emergency department, a couple of the medical floors, a COVID floor, ICU, labor and delivery, which is an extension of the emergency department. And those really really needed things, but like almost every department has gone through furlough. I think the OR has been hit the hardest. Um, Everybody's had their hours cut if they weren't furloughed. I've had my hours cut. I get an extra day off a week because we're not taking, nowhere near half of what we are, which is a dangerous thing because there's a lot of hospitals going through this right now, and most hospitals have been suffering because of the changes in healthcare laws, and so you got bigger healthcare companies coming in and buying out hospitals to try and save them. The only way to stay alive, stay afloat in the healthcare industry is to pretty much join a larger healthcare chain.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say, man, things got tight really quick because once you shut down all the money makers, what can you do? Where the hospitals are bleeding money left and right. It's a scary thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you kind of mentioned that. I've been hearing reports that hospitals, because they're furloughing a lot of their elective surgery personnel and the money isn't coming in, that a lot of hospitals are kind of feeling the pressure to misclassify some of their patients. A guy comes in with regular pneumonia, they put it down as a COVID-19 because we get 13,000, and if we have to put him on a ventilator, we get 39,000. Have you been seeing any of that where you work? Or if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine too.
I can speak on it vaguely. I will say our morgue, we deliver a lot of COVID down there and export a lot of COVID, but most of them have extreme underlying morbidities or they're
Hmm.
very elderly. And
Yeah.
what's been hit the hardest is nursing homes.
Hmm.
But you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who's died from COVID who was otherwise extremely healthy, unless
Right.
something else was going on.
Yeah,
And
that's what I've been hearing too. That it's always, for the most part, it's the elderly, the very elderly, like 70 and 80, and they've always got like pneumonia, or they've been smoking for 50 years, or COPD, or any of the other illnesses, cancer, whatever.
yeah, well, for the risk of being recognized, because there's people who work there at the hospital who follow and watch podcasts like these. Um, I can't say a whole lot on it, but my own personal opinion on it is what's being reported as far as COVID deaths does not match up with what we're seeing.
Yeah.
These people may be COVID positive, but they're very frail
Hmm.
physically, health wise. They're very frail, and I don't know that we've had anybody who was actually healthy within reasonable health, standards that we hold, who got COVID and died.
Right. Yeah. And I think that once all of this hysteria dies down and information like that starts to disseminate out, I don't think that I can wrap my head around how badly the credibility of the media, the World Health Organization, the National Health Services, all of these people that are out there running around like Chicken Little saying that the sky is falling. I don't see how they're going to get any of this back, and how anybody's going to take anything they say seriously ever again. And in the event that something serious does break out, like Ebola or a swine flu that hits the world, like the 1918 Spanish flu or something like that, and these people come out and say, "Hey guys, this is really serious," everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, piss up a rope. You said that last time, and it was practically nothing." And then, I want to put on my little tinfoil hat here and say that maybe that's the plan all along, but it's like, how do they bounce back from this?
Well, as for that, anything that detrimental to humanity will be self-evident in the death rate,
Mm-hmm.
in the severity of symptoms and transmissibility in the death rate. Now, COVID's very, very transmissible. That's why we take the precautions we do. I will say one of my gripes is I have to wear the same mask all week. We can't get masks. We're hardly able to come up with N95s. It's supposed to be 4-hour, masks, or dispose of them as soon as you leave a room. But all that went out the window. But as for something like the Spanish flu or whatever, if we have any kind of catastrophic disease, you will know immediately by the death rate, and media won't even have to, exacerbate the headlines. You'll see it.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Is there anything else that you want to talk? We're kind of coming up on about 50 minutes here. We got about 10 minutes left. If you got anything else that you want to touch on, I had something in my head, but I forgot it.
Yeah, I know I've kind of like brain farted a little bit here as I've answered some questions. I was going to go places. Oh, one thing I want to say: if anybody who is any way involved in journalism sees this, what I said earlier about it's not a boogaloo movement, it's not a boog, a civil war, or anything like that. It's a liberty movement, and the uninformed assumption that all we are just guys who live in our mother's basements and are just children. What you that is a extreme misunderstanding of what's going on. What's going on is an organic movement, and people who are involved in this are veterans, active duty. They're law enforcement officers, retired. Now there are some law enforcement officers who love the memes because they aren't really statists at heart. I wish they'd change their careers. But we got medical, EMS, fire. We've got corporate people. I mean, everybody who believes these things who's joining in is from every walk of life. They're all around you. They want their liberties. This is affecting their lives. It's not just it's not just guys out there in Hawaiian shirts, trying to open carry protests, or just Karens down there protest on Capitol Hill who still wear the MAGA hats and turn a blind eye to the sins of the right.
Mm.
Everybody's affected because what this government's doing, what police have become in this country, it affects everybody, and people are starting to wake up. So this movement is comprised of your everyday average individual, not just wannabes or military LARPers, stuff like that. Like, I'm nobody. I'm a guy. I never served in the military. I can't speak for the military. I can only give my observation. Um, I'm a guy on a farm who's a nursing student who's trying to raise a family. But that's so many of us. There's so many of us in so many different professions who are just sick of it, sick of being trampled on. And I think that needs to be understood, that
Yep.
what's happening here is not just Hawaiian flags and Eskimo huts. What's happening here on a large scale is, I'll say it's an organic revolution.
Right. Yeah, it kind of reminds me, now that you said it, there's people from all walks of life that are getting involved with this, because everybody from all walks of life are directly being affected with it. And it reminds me of that scene from Fight Club where they grab the politician, they drag him into the bathroom, they threaten to cut his balls off, and Brad Pitt is sitting there with a knife in his face, and he says, the people that you're after right now are your neighbors, they're your friends. We clean your bathroom, we cook your food, we haul your trash, we guard you while you sleep. Do not fuck with us.
Exactly. Everybody who's waking up to this liberty movement and joining in are the backbone of this civilization. So
Yep.
you can only lie to them for so long. You can only threaten, with MRAPs and police ARs, for so long before people start fighting back.
Exactly.
Now,
And with that,
I'll say, I've right
oh,
before
go
you
ahead.
end, I've got a lot of impatient followers who are just like, "When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen?" Just let it happen.
Right. All right. It's unfortunate that something like this is looking like it might be right over the hill, and it's both unfortunate and fortunate that we suffer from something called the prisoner's dilemma, where nobody wants to be the one to take that first step,
Hmm.
because there's always the possibility that everybody that was behind them cheering them on sees that guy get shot and be like, oh, I had nothing to do with it, and then suddenly you just look like an asshole.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think with that, we're going to call it a night here, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. My guest tonight was North Carolina with a /K/. If you like this, go ahead and go give his page a like. Like our page, share this around. If you enjoyed this episode, go to think-liberty.com or go on any podcasting app. I think we're on pretty much all of them now. Excuse me. We also have Facebook page, YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter that nobody really monitors, I don't think. But Twitter sucks anyways.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, North Carolina, for sitting down with me. This was a very good conversation.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Sometimes I struggle filling out the full hour, but I don't think we had that problem tonight. So thank you, everybody, and good night.
Night.
Stick around.